Mr. NJ Ayuk, Executive Chairman of the Africa Energy Chamber. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So this refinery that's finally been commissioned, is this a game changer as it's being dubbed?
It is bigger than a game changer for what is happening in Nigeria. And let me tell you why. Nigeria used to spend $21 to $25 billion a year importing refined products when it exports all its crude outside because of insufficient refineries. Now you have a refinery that's going to produce 650,000 barrels a day, refine them, use them in the country. But you know what? There's going to be excess capacity. It's going to serve other markets like Benin, Togo, Ghana, and even Cameroon that doesn't have a refinery right now because the country is broke and cannot really drive up refined products. So it is big. It is huge. I don't think a lot of people really understand what this means to the local economies and to everyday people.
We'll talk a little bit more about everyday people on the ground, but there were 5 other heads of state in attendance. So this is a regional gain. I think you've given us a clue in your last answer.
It is a regional gain because what we have to see is you have that region where you have Nigeria alone with 200 million people. You look at across West Africa, another 115 million people. They are running starved with refined products, but people only think about refined products, refined petroleum products. You have to look at the fertilizers. So look at what it's going to do for driving up our agricultural bases. So we don't have to beg for fertilizers out of Ukraine and Russia. We can produce that in Africa and take care of our own agricultural security. The petroleum products give us energy security. This is what we really need. And how good it is that it is an African entrepreneur doing that. And that tells you that when governments step aside, private sector steps up, things can happen.
Mr. Dangote, at the launch, said that this is the world's largest single train refinery and state-of-the-art technology has been deployed there. So this is Africa leading in a global environment.
That is the beauty of this. Most refineries were built in the 70s and 80s with old technologies. These refineries has some of the newest technologies to process crude oil. So what is going to have? Africa, Nigeria, and across West Africa, they're going to be having some of the cleanest fuels you've had in there. So what does that mean? It helps big on the environment. It helps big with clean that region that has seen some really bad polluted fuels. But what also means is that we are leapfrogging when it comes to clean fuels, and that is really good. And technology is playing the role. And I think this is something that most of Africa and the region need to embrace this and embrace this quick.
So let's talk about the ordinary man in the street. When a Nigerian goes to the pump now to fill up his car, will that fuel be cheaper? And the issue of subsidies, will that be a thing of the past?
This is a two-pronged question. First of all, if the fuel will be cheaper and cleaner and better. But then we have to also deal with the entrepreneurship angle where a lot of Nigerians will become entrepreneurs because they're buying and selling products made in Nigeria, cleaner and better. But third, here's the big part of it. There's a lot of exploration activity going around Nigeria, but it's been stalled and it's been very expensive because you know what? To produce in Nigeria, it takes you about $34. In the United States, about 15, in Saudi Arabia about 7. That price to produce in Nigeria comes down rapidly because there is a market for it right in Nigeria. The issue of subsidies, the incoming president has made it very clear. He's going to have to take out fuel subsidies. And we at the chamber believe fuel subsidies, it's as painful as it is to the common man, it is better for the economy. Where there is economic growth, we start getting people moving from working class to middle class, people out of poverty getting into working class. At the long run, it's better. Short-term pain, long-term gain. That's what it takes when it comes to taking out these fuel subsidies.
Nigeria is the second largest oil producer on the continent. Why do you think it's taken so long for a country of this size to build its own refinery?
Well, the country hasn't built it. An entrepreneur and the private sector built it. The country has built a lot of refineries in Nigeria. A lot of these small refineries, they're not functioning. You know why? A typical African problem. Compare it to African public utilities. Only Seychelles and Morocco, where you have public utilities functioning and have turning out profits. Anything you build in Africa and hand it over to the hands of bureaucrats and politicians, it's not going to be commercially viable. It would not be around for a long term. So we need to stop turning over amazing infrastructure, great projects in the hands of politicians and bureaucrats. There's only one thing they know how to do, run it to the ground. I think the Petroleum Industry Act in Nigeria created an enabling environment. It opened the door for private financing to come in. And there's something even brilliant about this. Majority of the financing that went into this came out of the African continent. So don't tell me you can't find financing out of the African continent. $19 billion. It came out. We didn't have to go to the IMF, the World Bank. We didn't have to go to the European Union. We didn't have to go to China to beg them for aid to come do this. It was done by African private sector leading the way. Government should not be in the business of running refineries. 100 billion naira is being spent every month to maintain Nigerian small refineries owned by government. Guess what? The results are still bad. Still bad. They're not functioning. Government needs to get out. They need to sell off those refineries to the private sector and let private sector lead while government regulates and watch and receive the profits. And then the politicians will have to fight how to spend taxpayers' money.
This refinery is 7 times the size of Victoria Island, Lagos's Victoria Island. Are there environmental issues that people need to be concerned about, especially when you consider the density of Lagos in terms of population?
There are no environmental issues. That was one of the first things they did with this project. This project was carried out with one of the most extensive, most complex environmental impact assessment. It was done, and they checked all of this, and there's piles upon reports, and I'll make sure you get some of them if you want. I don't know if you have time to read all of them, but it came back better, and they put the environment at the forefront of this, and this is something that is really beautiful about this project. And I think that everyday people in Lagos, everyday people around Africa, and those really concerned about them getting clean fuels, they should know this world-class project has that covered. And I think it's really good to see an African project like this leading the way. And they had West European, Asian, and Nigerian environmental inspectors being part of this process all the way, and they gave it thumbs up. And we at the chamber give it thumbs up as well.
So a lot of excitement that an entrepreneur could come up with a project like this, but the civic organization Think Tank for Democracy says that it's concerned that this is a monopoly venture, because when you have one player like this, who controls prices? Is there a concern there?
Let's talk about the monopoly. There was these think tanks and civil society groups that are criticizing the project, a lot of them being funded by foreign entities coming out of Europe. I don't think they should be. I know they're worried. What this project has done is that it has taken the cartels out. Look at this cartel. You had a cartel that took all of a country, 200 million people's crude oil, put it in Europe, refine it in Europe, and send it right back to everyday people with higher prices. You talk about greenhouse gas emissions. Shipping is the 3rd largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. You've cut that. Good for the environment. You talk about taxes. They're not paying taxes right now in Europe. They're paying taxes in Africa. Good for democracy. It's gone up. You talk about jobs. Many thousands and thousands of Nigerians are going to be employed. Good for democracy. You talk about entrepreneurship. A lot of young people, instead of crossing the Sahara and the Mediterranean, going to Europe to look for jobs out there, now they'll be having jobs at home, and you'll be active members of their civic society. Good for democracy. The only cartels that need to get worried were the oil traders and the commodity companies, which a lot of them have been very corrupt. You and I know the story about Glencore, really corrupt outfit, paid $1.5 billion in fines. They were taking that crude, refining it in Europe, and bringing it right back to Nigeria. Those kind of cartels, they are the ones worried, and now they masquerade in the name of think tanks and civil society groups. Let me tell you this. What do you think for a country like that is energy security? You see how the EU has been moving left and right with financing because of climate and everything. What do you think would happen to a country like Nigeria if the EU said, we will, because of climate change, we will no longer receive crude oil coming from emerging markets, from Africa? You know what? That country will be shut down, will be in the dark, there'll be civil strife. And we saw that. So we need to be very careful. Energy security first, and that is what this project does. It gives energy security, but it opens up room for other entrepreneurs to do the same in Nigeria and regionally and all across Africa. It's not a cartel. It is a victory for Africans.
And that's where we'll leave it. NJ Ayuk, Executive Chairman of the African Energy Chamber, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you so much, Peter. It's an honor to be with you. Looking forward to seeing you in the studio soon.